a conversation I had like during the week. And Catherine was actually telling me that she was doing a meditation with, that somebody had said, oh, you should sign up for this meditation. It's with a very famous person, very famous teacher. And she said the meditation was a little weird. And I immediately said, because he won't stop talking. And she went, he won't stop talking. And so we started laughing. And I said, right, you know, he's talking the whole time he's teaching meditation. And we got to talking about whether that was meditation or not. And so that's kind of how this topic of the week came up. And also I thought that we should have a topic that's not such a hot button topic. Like we've the past couple of weeks, we've really dealt with some intense topics that are dealing with, like, you know, social, what's going on politically, and kind of the climate around the energy right now. And I thought we should have something that is a little more based on the concepts of yoga, and, you know, looking at meditation through the eyes of kind of new age, the new age world, which we're influenced by. Even if you're a yoga teacher, we're still very much influenced by new age ideas. And, you know, and really looking at like what the classic yoga school of philosophy has to say about meditation and how they're different. And so that's kind of where I wanted to start and talk about. One of the things that we can automatically say is that no matter what type of quote unquote meditation you're practicing, there are automatically certain benefits from kind of stop, be still, breathe, and kind of focus on something. You know, we know that there are benefits such as antidepressant. There's benefits such as like when even getting people with Alzheimer's to sit in the morning when they have what's called morning fear or morning panic. And you know, we're calling this meditation, but we're just getting them to sit down and breathe, that they can overcome their fears. We know that that there's a rejuvenation of energy just by kind of sitting and breathing. And these benefits from this kind of what we call meditation are also seen in what we call true classical, the school of yoga meditation that would be taught by like Patanjali. Like we see the same benefits, but they are different. They're drastically different. And a lot of things that are being taught right now are positive affirmations in this state of kind of being calm, of sitting and being with the breath. Catherine was telling me about the thing that she had signed up for with this very famous teacher. And it was a prosperity meditation. So the whole time the teacher was talking about how prosperous you were and how you could, you know, develop wealth and energy that would bring prosperity to you. And so it wasn't, and I laughed. We were both laughing because in terms of classical school of yoga, like Patanjali would actually say, you're attaching yourself to the material world. This is not meditation. You know, he would laugh. But is it valid? You know, what's being taught? Evidently it is valid. It's needed because people are signing up for it. They feel like that they're getting something out of it. And then we have what's known as mindful meditation, which comes a bit more out of the Buddhist practice, but is very popular today. And even within, when I really started looking at like how is mindfulness used in the contemporary yoga tradition, even in our tradition, Jivamukti, I have heard mixed messages while in meditation, right? Very mixed messages. Things like watch the mind, observe the mind, don't attach yourself to the mind. Now that is a mindful meditation in itself. That is what people are being taught. But then mantra is added on top of it. And once you add the concept of mantra, you're going into a different type of meditation altogether. So mindfulness, according to classical yoga, would come from Patanjali saying, yogas chitta vritti nirodha. You know, cease the fluctuations of your mind. And he gives this direction very early on in the Yoga Sutras. But you can't cease something that you're unaware of, right? How can you stop something that you're not even aware of? So even with Patanjali, he's saying, look, first you have to acknowledge that there are these fluctuations of the mind before you can stop them. So mindful meditation actually comes out of the meditative practice at the very earliest stages. It's the first baby step a practitioner would make to start to understand that the mind has a will of its own, and that the only way to control it is first to confront it, to watch it, to observe it, to become the witness of it. And so that is very legitimate. So mindful meditation becomes very legitimate, but it's not the end-all result, right? It's a tool, it's a mechanism to actually kind of start to understand the meditative process itself. When we look at what Patanjali is actually saying meditation is, it's finally a disconnection from the mind. Like the final stages of meditation is going beyond the mind and going beyond the body. Which would mean that, like, if a yoga teacher or a meditation teacher is constantly talking to you, you're connecting to the sensories, the hearing, the environment around you, which would kind of defeat the purpose of meditation. But it's so hard, right? What Patanjali is asking you to do is really difficult for us. Like, how do I disconnect from the senses? How do I only connect into an inner world that I'm not even really sure is there, right? And so he starts to talk about the fact that, which is this month's focus of the month, which is Vastu Samya Chitta Beda Tayor Vihakata Pandahar. Each individual person perceives the same object in a different way, according to their state of mind or projections. Now, when Patanjali is talking about this in the Yoga Sutras, he's actually talking about the object being the self, the higher self. This teaching can be incorporated into an idea that, like, you and I are seeing a house differently, and I like the house and you don't like the house, but that's not really what Patanjali is talking about. What Patanjali is talking about is the self, which is God, and that the practitioner, each of us in the room, is going to see that differently. Because then he talks about the stages of unification or reunification with the self through meditation, which is the object of meditation, which is the goal of meditation. And those 4 stages are: one, that you have to see the object in the mind's eye and recognize the object. Then 2, you have to understand that object on an internal sensory level. And then 3, there's a moment where you and the object become one, and there's this aha moment. And still, you're not in meditation yet. It's just this aha moment that you realize that the self is you and you are the self. And it's such an overwhelming process that he actually gives it its own little compartmentalization. And then finally, there's the idea of complete reunification or meditation, which is you and the self become one, and there is nothing. There is nothing that exists. Now, what's fascinating is that, you know, there are beings who've experienced this. In the Buddhist tradition, it's called shunya, emptiness or nothing. And even the Dalai Lama, if he has experienced it, he would never tell you that he's experienced it, because the ability to experience it is so rare that it would be almost like creating some kind of strange hierarchy. Well, I've experienced samadhi and you haven't. So we tend not to even teach these concepts as yoga teachers because they almost seem unattainable. But Patanjali keeps telling us that they're obtainable, that they are actually capable of having it. Let's start with Julie. Do you have anything to say about these concepts of meditation?
Yeah, there are so many, and a lot of them are, like you said, they are contemplations and not meditation. But contemplations, there's many, and they're useful to get you used to, observing different levels of mental activity. And there's also, well, I think of Manorma a lot because I've been studying with her mostly in the last few years, and we meditate on nadam, on the nadam, the sound that this is like. You can start with just the sound in your ears of the kind of like, you can kind of hear your nervous system. If it's really quiet, you can hear sort of a ringing in the ears. And then the way Sri Brahmananda Saraswati would teach meditation was to feel your spirit, to feel the pulsation and the vibration of the inner body, and just that. And when the mind takes over, once you notice it, you let it go and go back to the inner body, feel the inner body. And then Norma would say, she'd say, well, now what's that going to lead to? She'd say, I don't know. For you, it may lead
She can't
this
answer
way.
that.
No, she can't. No. For you, it may lead this way. For you, it may lead that way. But she gives cautions like, don't expect some big bang vision, don't expect, it's little by little, pade, little openings of those ahas you're talking about, little openings of, oh. And those openings are the answer to the question, who am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, because who you are is the totality. And then it's like, whoa, what does that mean? And so you find your focus, And in her case, it's Nadam. And it's been working for me lately a lot, last couple of years. And I teach it in Shavasana. When I teach yoga class, I teach that to all the relaxation. And then when all the different parts of relaxation are done, to now bring your attention to your inner body and feel the vibration and the pulsation of your inner body. Feel what you are beyond your body and your mind. And when your mind takes you away, gently bring your attention back, because it's always there. Your higher self is always there. It's just our job as yogis is to recognize it.
Yeah.
And one time she said in a class, not even a year ago, and it struck me. I don't know if I was ready to hear it or what. And she said, we were about to do some Nadam meditation, listening and feeling, listening to the ringy sound, feeling the vibration. It's kind of the same. And then she said, to feel your spirit is enough, I assure you. And I was like, oh, okay. If Manorma assures me, then that's what I'm going to do in my meditation practice. I'm going to feel my spirit and see what little things open up.
I found this. I wanted to ask you because I know you are studying with Manorma, and Manorma teaches meditation from the tradition of Sri Brahmananda Saraswati, who was teaching the Brahman path, and what he is teaching is a impersonal identification with the self. So it's interesting because what he's trying to do is that method is trying to create an identification with the self that we can all understand, or that we can all put our own spin onto it without us arguing over the name of it or what it looks like, because it's something without form. In reality, what he's doing is actually incredibly sophisticated, incredibly complicated, and is actually beyond most people, because most people are visual animals. That's why we love television, right? We'll sit there and watch anything, and so our imagination starts to run wild. Just going into the differences between what Sri Brahmananda would teach and somebody like Raghunath Swami, who is part of a sect, which focuses on Krishna, which they would teach mantra-based meditation. Now, Patanjali says that mantra-based meditation is acceptable, but it's personal. He gets back to this idea that it's personal. In the Ramayana, right, Hanuman is told to chant the name of Ram to meditate, but that's a personal relationship with Ram, right? So this is where that idea that each of us are not going to agree upon what the object is, that so when the yoga teacher starts to try to install that in a group of people, or the meditation teacher starts to try to install that to a group of students willing to meditate, the question then becomes, is it no longer meditation, but actually a form of hypnosis? Because you're trying to plant a seed of what that idea of self is. In the case of Sri Brahmananda, I would say he's not trying to create hypnosis. He's actually saying, focus on this vibrational sound within you. We all have this hum in us if you allow yourself to feel it. It's there. It's the prana. It's not going to be there when you're dead. You're not going to be able to find it when you're dead. And it's your beingness. It's your spirit. Right. But like I said, I think that's, I like that. I feel that that's what I would rather experience and teach, but I think it's very sophisticated. It's very intellectual, because it really asks you to go beyond what you know into something that you can't put a name or a description to it. You know, it's indescribable. Um, Gwen, it's good to see you. How are you? It's your first time showing up on? Is it right?
Yeah, I've done just one or two classes at noon, but yeah, it's the first time. It's great to see you.
It's good to see you. And so, like, I wondered, like, do you have anything you'd like to add into the conversation?
No, it's interesting, Austin, when you talk about, is it meditation or is it hypnosis? Like, I'm really going to think about that, because there are times when I'm meditating and it does feel almost hypnotic. So that's interesting. You know, I mean, I've been studying with Rashila lately. You probably know that. And she really gets into mantras. And sometimes it does feel hypnotic, you know? So that's interesting.
Right. When I went to a really wonderful workshop with this Swami, and I'd have to pull up, I only met him once, but he was at Jivamukti years ago, and he was a Shivite Swami from the Himalayas. And it was like his first American tour. He was very old. And he did a meditation, and it was really harsh. Like, when I say harsh, it was like, sit down, stop thinking, focus on your breath, go inward. And it was like really dry. And I remember I was with a friend of mine who is from a Brahmin family. And the guy did questions and answers, and my friend Om, who thought we were going to be given, because this was a great Shivite teacher from the Himalayas, that we were going to be given Om Namah Shivaya. You know, he was waiting for the mantra to, like, you know, and afterwards there was a question and answers, and he asked the Swami, he said, you know, why didn't you give us a mantra? And the Swami said, mantras are just the keys to get you through the garden gate. He said, you got to let go of the mantra. It was really kind of like, you've got to let go of the mantra, or you're not meditating. If you're like chanting that mantra the whole time, you're caught up in the mind. He said, what is it that's causing you to say the mantra? It's the mind. And I kind of thought, wow. But I like the fact that he said that mantra is the key that gets you through the garden gate. But at some point, you got to get through the gate, and you got to let go of the, you know, you got to move past that. And that stuck with me, kind of like Julie saying, you know, just feel your spirit. That, like, you know, that mantra can become a crutch. Mm-hmm. That there's nothing wrong with the mantra, but if you can't move beyond the mantra, and if the mantra, like I noticed this with a lot of practitioners of mantra, that you know, they get up in the morning, they have their beads, their mantra beads, and their little bag, and their hands in the bag, and they're just rattling those mantras off as fast as they can so they can have breakfast. And then you have to ask, was the point of the meditation worth it? Because you've rushed through it just to get through your 108 mantras so you can say you did your sadhana. Yep. Did you really experience anything? Wouldn't it have been better off just to go on and have your breakfast and come back and do your meditation when you had time for it and not rush through it? So that mantra can also, you know, kind of stop you from actually going further if that's all you are doing.
Right. Yes.
That, you know, it's just getting through those mantras.
Yeah.
Jen, I mean, it's good to see you back this week.
Thank you. Thanks.
Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I mean, obviously, as a mala maker, I do infuse my beads with the mantras, but I'm not so pedantic that I'm thinking that, that's saving the world or anything. But I really was interested when you talked about the Brahmin
The Brahman path.
Because what I see, I mean, obviously knowing the sorry, caught me choking, Brahmin being the highest. What I like about meditation is that anybody could do it.
Yes.
So that's really my thing with the meditation, is that you don't need to be, as Russell Simmons said, you just need a good seat.
Yeah.
So, I like to practice my TM when I can. Like I said, obviously, infusing anything I can with a positive energy. But yeah, no, otherwise I'm not really so much a student of or schooled in meditation, just kind of a person out here who does the best that they can and tries to just be mindful in things that I do. That's my only input.
So my teacher, Yogeshri, he makes a very interesting statement, because he says, he'll say, okay, we're going to meditate, but let me be clear, I cannot teach you how to meditate. And he keeps saying that over. And one day I asked Yogeshri, I said, why are you saying you can't teach us? He said, look, I can give you certain tools. He said, but this is an interconnection. He said, these are just tools. And he said, nobody's really wrong with all of the different systems out there, because we're all trying to provide you with a tool that will get you to understand how the process of meditation works. But like I just said to Gwen, like the tool can become a crutch, or the tool can become that you can't get past the tool. And that Brahman path, it does come out of Vedanta, which is really it's I think it's a wonderful tradition, but it's dry. It's very dry. It's not this kind of emotional. It's actually very unemotional, which is, I think, what makes it hard for people. But then again, if you are starting to understand and stop the fluctuations of the mind, it's the mind that causes the emotions. So that idea that if the meditation becomes, a kind of religious ecstasy, and that becomes a totally different experience. Lynn.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yes. So, I'm loving sort of the topic of mindfulness or mindfulness meditation, and, just thinking about also sort of how those concepts are connected, yet different. And I think for me, my own practice of mindfulness is probably less of a cerebral one. And I really think about, say, how can I be present in the moment without judgment, without sort of this self-criticism, right, that the mind will do. So it's like being aware of whatever the experience is in this moment without trying to achieve any particular state, of being.
Right.
Right. Of just like, well, I'm noticing and observing what's coming up in the moment in a as much of a neutral and compassionate stance as I can. And sort of that's kind of what comes up for me. I think about it often with music, you know, combining music and meditation, or that concept of sound, and like thinking about the space in between the notes, the silence. I mean, that's really where the meditation is. It's in the space between, say, the sound.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's just kind of what comes up for me when I think about mindfulness or meditation. It's because there's so much that we want to get away from ourselves, right? I mean, our society is set up with, let's distract ourselves as much as possible. get away from the uncomfortability, right? I mean, of like anything inward. So sometimes I almost like will embrace the uncomfortability that comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that idea of the silence in between the notes, because that goes back to that idea of emptiness, which is, you know, even what Patanjali is saying is the ultimate goal of samadhi, which is nothingness or non-existence. He actually uses a term in Sanskrit that means non-existence, that there is nothing that exists, that there is no material world anymore. One of the when you start to think about that idea of emptiness, I think for a long time I think that concept, you know, because the first time I encountered it was kind of through the idea of Zen Buddhism, this idea of these kind of empty white spaces with nothing there. I hated it. But as time's gone on and I've practiced more and more, I think that idea of emptiness, or that space in between of silence where there's nothing there, actually it becomes very comforting, because you start to realize how much we spend our energy on stuff that's going to change on us. That it's not going to stay the same. That what's important, you know, in the exterior world at this moment is not going to be important a month from now, or 6 months from now, or maybe 10 years from now. It's going to change. And that idea of emptiness is the idea of unchanging reality. It becomes, and by my resistance to it was also that within Zen Buddhism, you're trying to express the unchanging reality within the material natural world, which is changing, which is impossible. You know, the expression, trying to express it within an interior or an environment is actually counterintuitive to what it actually is. You can't, you can't do it. It becomes an artistic interpretation of it, and it's a personal projection onto it. So that took me a long time to kind of figure out that, you know, that I actually was attaching my understanding of that emptiness, or that space in between the notes, to my reaction to somebody else's artistic interpretation, which led me to resist wanting to experience like what you call or refer to as that space in between the notes, because it was a cultural application onto it that I didn't identify with. Japanese Zen Buddhism, you know, or that, and you know what I'm talking about, like the white room with sand on the floor and kind of a pattern, like with a rake, like that kind of stuff makes me crazy. You know, it looks like a spa to me, and all I can think of is like I should be getting a facial, you know. I don't see, so it's interesting how even something that was supposed to help you can stop you. Bobby, you've actually done a lot of really interesting reading on this kind of stuff.
For me personally, I always find it easier to do some metered breathing and then pranayama, including retention and Kalabati, and that kind of clears out the whole system, so that there's less noise all around that. And I find that's really, for me personally, and maybe even vocalizing some ohms. It's easier for me to get into a good space in order to meditate naturally. Then you have the problem of these thoughts coming in and out, but just as long as you don't grab onto them and let them float through, you'll be fine. So for me, that's the most important thing. Just preparing myself and not just sitting down and say, "Oh, now I'm meditating," because that's incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you kind of brought up the idea of pranayama. So, when Patanjali gives the eight steps to meditation, pranayama is one of them. So obviously there has to be some understanding of breath in meditation. Now, interestingly enough, if you read like some of the writings by the Bihar school, what they say the mantra is there for is to control the breath, that the breath has to be matched to the mantra, which I found interesting. And I didn't really realize until I was just recently reading their book on pranayama, and they were saying this is the only reason for mantra meditation is so that you learn to elongate the breath, the whole Gayatri mantra, and the exhale to the Gayatri mantra. That the mantra becomes a training for the pranayama that then you're supposed to learn to let go of. And if you can't do the Gayatri mantra, which has 39 syllables in it, then you do Om Namah Shivaya, or you do, Sri Krishna or whatever. But in reality, that mantra is there to, the longer the mantra, the longer the breath, the longer the inhale, the longer the exhale, which is also kind of a fascinating idea, because in pranayamas, the deeper the breath is, the longer the exhale, the more the mind calms down. And this is scientific. This has to do with the nervous system. So the pranayama is important because it, again, is a tool to get you into the meditative state. What the Bihar school says is that once in meditation, once pranayama is mastered and is no longer used as a key, the breath may almost cease to exist in meditation, because the nervous system slows down so much that the vital organs slow down, that what do you call it? Your ability to burn food. What is what is that? I'm trying to think of. The digestive system, your whole, everything slows down. And so in reality, your whole being becomes still, and the breath may even become almost non-existent once you're in deep meditation. And I found that very interesting, coming from the Bihar school, which goes much more into detail of like the experiences of pranayama and meditation than Patanjali does. They break it down more into like technical manuals. Sybil, I'm going to call on you before now.
I guess the first time I started meditating was through the yoga studio, and I wasn't sure what I was doing. So basically what I learned to do was just focus on the breath and taking and like elongating the inhales and the exhales. And eventually what I do is I actually picture a black hole. I don't see white space. I picture a black hole, and I kind of like bring my mind in there. And at sometimes I can just kind of like really tune everything out. But there's other times, of course, thoughts are still coming, and I kind of like have to let it, and I know I shouldn't try to push them out and just kind of like let them flow through it, but that's the way I've learned to meditate. And I don't know if it's right or wrong,
Right.
but that's the way I've done it.
I think that's kind of in the end what I'm getting to is that like there's actually no right or wrong way. Like all of these are tools that are given to us by different, and some of them do kind of veer off into like affirmations, like Julie mentioned, or hypnosis, because they become about one subject and trying to convince you can achieve something. And then a lot of them have that moment where you kind of have to let the person go and experience whatever they're going to experience. And as they continue practicing, it'll be different things.
For everybody else.
Yeah. Neil, I was watching you. You were like nodding your head at one point.
I agree totally whatever you're saying, but I'm really myself. I can call myself meditator. I meditate 2 hours a day, but I tried so many things from the beginning. I was very devastated, people telling you things that you don't understand, like mantras, and then trying to hypnotize me. I was like, I don't want to take that class or don't want to listen to meditation. But eventually, the more you practice, you just don't pay attention anymore what other people's opinion about the mantra, whatever it is. It's just I think you learn to be in your body and you become present. And that's what you said with the breath, you become more still, it takes you more open. And then, I use the breath a lot to start with, and then it's the life saver and the pranayama, and then you can start, everybody has different ways, but I think my in years it changed to the observation, sensations and stuff, but the equanimity, and it's changing. That is another mantra, like people like they're saying anicca on your ear.
They're changing.
Yeah, you just realize you stay with your sensation. If it's good or bad, don't react to it.
Right.
And then that's how I started being comfortable being in the body in the present. Like I heard somebody saying the whole world is in your body. It's really true.
Yeah.
So you control your body and then you control your mind. And I think all of the tools that were given by the teachers based on their experience, or they want to be a good teacher and they just want to do meditation without not much experience. And that's what happens. Like I had a class, I took a very famous person's class too, but he's an anatomy teacher, and then he started talking about bone structure and hip girdle and stuff. And am I doing meditation? And I just actually, I was gonna just turn it off, but I stayed. I didn't react.
Right.
I was just curious what's gonna take us, but it
became
didn't
an
stop.
anatomy class while setting in
Yes,
meditation.
it didn't stop. So you need to, if you're the beginner, you need to choose the right person
Yeah.
who has experienced your meditation.
Yeah. I mean, and here again, I think that, like, you know, if you're just sitting down for the first time, you know, you probably aren't first time going to be aware of your hips. You know, like, oh my God, like my hips are hurting me. And that's, you know, that's here a very interesting starting point, but it's not meditation per se.
Not at all.
And but it's and I think what's unfair is that people aren't, that are saying they're teaching these things are not saying this is not what the classic school of yoga says is meditation. It's actually just kind of the beginning stages of getting comfortable with sitting and realizing what's going on in your body.
So, just to get your opinion, when you teach a meditation class, I'm trying to teach meditation classes, but would you just name it meditation or to learn like something else?
So what I found is that, you know, because I taught a meditation that was a Satsang meditation. We're probably going to slightly change it as we go forward. That on Tuesdays, and it was a free class, and we did a little thing like this for about 30 minutes where we talked, or I talked about something, and then we meditated for like 15 minutes. But I was trying really to kind of set up this idea of like, okay, I will give you this Dharma that we're going to talk about that then gets you in the mindset of meditating for the next 15 minutes. But I'm not going to talk. I'm going to allow you to experience it. Sam's been there with me, and people had a really difficult time with it. Like, it was hard to get. You had like one or two people who understood what was kind of going on, and they stayed with it. But most people came in and they were disappointed that I wasn't talking the whole time and telling them that they were seeing unicorns and rainbows and blue clouds. And, you know, that they wanted all of that positive affirmation, and they would get frustrated and sometimes even angry.
They get bored.
Well, angry. I saw anger sometimes because they were expecting something. Mm-hmm. And I think that the key is that probably instead of the Dharma, I should have been teaching some pranayama
first
before.
Okay.
And I was giving different directions. Like when I teach meditation, because Sam and Julie both are Jivamukti teachers, and our teachers have said for years, just let the breath breathe the body. I don't do that anymore. I will tell people, like, elongate your breath. Notice your breath. Find your breath. So I teach, but now I'm going to actually start going deeper into like teaching some pranayama, like what Bobby was saying, with some retentions, with some, if they can do them, or even some vritti pranayamas, where that we kind of get you to set up to breathe, and then I think that will help facilitate the meditation. And then, you know, I've been trying to find a more, like I've been kind of teaching the same kind of thing that Julie was talking about, which is an Om meditation, or an internal vibrational that is less, that doesn't leave them just kind of sitting in empty and frustration, because they're not experiencing emptiness yet. They're experiencing frustration. So that's, I think, and I think as a meditation teacher, you have to tell them that they're going to be frustrated.
Yeah.
That it's okay to be
It's okay.
frustrated in the beginning. And it's okay, and ask yourself, why are you experiencing frustration and anger and kind of like disappointment?
It's all about awareness. I think it's all about awareness. But some people don't want to feel it.
No, they don't want to. They want to walk out, like I said, they want to walk out with a kind of cotton candy effect. That it's kind of this fluffy, sweet thing with no real nutritional value to it. And that's hard. That's impossible. That's not what it is.
No.
You know. But there is a lot of that, especially dealing with a lot of these meditation apps, right? Like these meditation apps that are out there. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of like cotton candy. You know, be on the beach, feel the summer breeze, see the beautiful sunset, hear the seagulls. You're in the Bahamas, kind of visualization.
Yeah, I think they're good for maybe 10, 15 minutes. When they're out of it, they're facing the world and they're still acting the same way they are. Like, it's not really deep-rooted meditation. I don't think it's deep.
Yeah. There was a study at Carnegie Mellon, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. They had taken 30 people, or maybe it was 60 people, and there were 2 sets of 30. They divided them into two groups. And one set of people, they had all, the binding factor between these 60 people were they had all lost their jobs. And they were all trying to get jobs and finding it very difficult to get a job. So they divided the group up into 2 sets of 30. On one side, they gave them the meditation teacher joked around with them, tried to become their friend, gave them positive affirmations like, you're a really wonderful person, you're going to get a job, you're going to get the best job you've ever had. And it was a very casual environment. On the other side, the 30 people were taught a rather strict kind of Buddhist meditation. It was very impersonal. It was very like, this is the steps I want you to do. And there was no positive affirmations. And after they taught, I think the program, like the teaching part went on for like a month. And then they let everybody go away for 3 months. And then they got them to come back. And they wanted to know what happened between these two groups. What they found is that the numbers, like who got a job and who didn't get a job, it varied. Like the meditation didn't have really an effect on people getting work. Some people over here got work, some people over here got work. What they found is that the people who were in the first study where it was positive affirmation, if they got work, they weren't happy with their work. And if they didn't get work, if they hadn't gotten a job yet, they were upset and depressed and angry that they hadn't gotten a job still. And over on this side where it was a rather rigid, strict, the people who got work were happy with their work, that they had gotten work. And those that had not found jobs were positive or confident that they would find a job soon. And that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's the goal of meditation. I think the benefit is just being present and being positive.
And that was in Psychology Today. It was the article was in Psychology Today. But very, very interesting between those, what may be the final outcome of kind of a new age, feel good at the moment meditation over kind of more a traditional impersonal kind of become the witness to this meditation.
That's great.
Sam?
Can you hear me okay? Okay. I've been thinking, my mind has been going to a million different places, so I'll try to stick to one. I remember when Yogeshri came and visited and he led the meditation class, and I remember him saying, I can't teach you how to meditate. I remember him saying that. And I also remember him talking about the trend of mindfulness in meditative practices, and there's even the studio of mindful meditation. And he said that something that has stuck with me a lot, and you touched on it here, and it's the idea that within this practice of meditation that we're doing, the Sanskrit word for it is dhyana, which he said doesn't really translate to meditation. Meditation is the closest English word that exists for it, but that's not what it is. Because meditation in Western culture is very much centered on mindfulness, which he says that, I remember him talking about it, the goal here is actually mindlessness.
Yeah.
And so holding these ideas in mind are just a training ground. It's the beginning, but eventually, and you touched on this with the idea of mantra becoming a crutch.
Yeah.
That eventually we have to even let go of that. And so that in and of itself is fulfilled with the second Yoga Sutra, Yogeshchitta Vritti Nirodha. And I've heard many teachers say, if you can master that second verse, then you don't need the rest of the Yoga Sutras. Because if you can contemplate in your mind it's the idea that if you can work out that thought in your head already of ceasing the fluctuations of the mind, then the rest of the instructions make sense. But the idea is to let go of all of those things, to let go of everything, and to be mindless.
Right.
And that in and of itself is the dhyana that he was talking about. So I keep coming back to that idea that these are tools that we use, but eventually we even have to put those down because those are attachments.
Right. Yes. So, and I would agree that the understanding of Yogeshchitta Vritti Nirodha, of ceasing the fluctuations of the mind, is not reunification, which is the ultimate goal that Patanjali is talking about. And to put it on a personal description, when he says reunification, he is saying the unification with the self are what most people would say call God. That it is because Patanjali is teaching from a dualistic system. He believes that nature and God are separate. That and they're, this is also a very interesting topic of non-dualism and dualism within the school of yoga. But Patanjali is a dualist teacher, and he believes that Purusha is different from Prakriti, that they're not one and the same. And so the idea of the ultimate goal of meditation is to get yourself out of the material world and unify and union with that is formless, or that is beyond the material world. Then there are other traditions that are non-dualistic traditions that believe that the material world is part of the divine, and that the veil of Mahavidya is actually God protecting you from the harsh reality of life, that he will reveal his secrets to you as you practice yoga. It's just a different philosophy of how you get there. But ceasing the fluctuations of the mind is for Patanjali just the first step of understanding that that your true nature isn't nature.
Right.
That your true nature is not the body, is not the mind. It's not the thoughts, it's not the emotions, it's not and Patanjali, when you get down to it, he's harsh. Like we tend to glaze, we've kind of candy coated it, but as a teacher, he's pretty hardcore because he really believes that these are two different, that they're not one and the same. To be, one of the, just very quickly, one of the ideas that how Patanjali writes the Yoga Sutras is that he actually witnessed the Tandava, or the dance of Shiva. And he witnessed the dance of Shiva from the left side, which Shiva is covering his chest in the asana, or the pose of Nataraj. But he also witnessed it with another great yoga teacher, whose name translates into tiger paws. And he witnessed it from the right side, which he saw something very different. He saw a non-dualistic dance, that everything was from the heart and God was at the heart. So you do have, at the same time, these two different teachers teaching the same thing, but just different conceptual schools, which they're very interesting. And we tend to blend the two. We mix them up a little bit as modern teachers, that sometimes we teach it from a little bit of non-dualism and we teach it from a little bit of dualism when it suits us. But in reality, Patanjali's, that a dualist. He's a dualist. I also liked what you had to say about what Yogeshri said about the idea that right now there's more mindfulness being taught. And mindfulness is good. Like I said, you have to start out with the fact that you have to understand that the mind's going nuts before you can stop it. But then if you think that is the end result of meditation, you'll never get to that idea of reunification, because you're never going to stop watching the mind, Maharishi Ramana, he said you had to kill the mind. That was the term he used, which is also pretty harsh. He said that, and it was slightly misunderstood because people thought that all of a sudden you're supposed to become a zombie. And he wasn't saying that. He was actually saying that you had that the working mind is always there. In other words, you should be able to drive a car, but it's the mind that you have to kill is when somebody tries to pass you and cuts you off, that you become angry and you become enraged. The thinking mind, the emotional mind, you have to kill it. So you're not becoming a zombie.
Right.
That's that misunderstanding of all those saints sitting there with half-opened eyes and not moving, not laughing or talking. And he was very charming. He was a very charming, funny man, actually, So, well, this was an interesting conversation. Does anybody else have anything to add? I didn't call on people who don't have their cameras on. So, Miku, do you have anything to add? And then we have somebody here who's the iPhone.
Hi, Austin. I just want to say I've taken a couple of your meditation classes. The first one I took was really difficult, but I wasn't discouraged. It was definitely difficult, and it was different from what I've taken in the past. Mm-hmm. But then I kept going. I think that's where the key is you just have to keep practicing. And I think what your classes taught me is I feel like it's actually easier for me to drop in to other meditations with in other groups and other settings.
That's interesting. Why is
Well,
that?
I think because you made me sit still for that long. Like, I think it's like the actual. So I know you were thinking of taking that out, but I think I gained a lot from you kind of. I mean, you weren't forcing me, but like you suggesting that we sit there and just sit there. Like, I think just doing that helped me so much. So.
Well, what I mean, just to be clear, what I'm thinking of taking out is you know how I tended to talk like 15 to 25 minutes before we meditated. I'm going to think of shortening that and adding like
Pranayama.
pranayama before they sit.
Yeah.
That I'm not giving them enough pranayama.
Yeah. And maybe like a little dharma, because I do like the dharma talk, I think.
But shorten it down a little bit. Try to, you know, Jivamukti teachers, sometimes we have a tendency to talk too much.
But, you know, like my journey with meditation is still pretty early on. And I just, you know, it is very personal. And I'm grateful for all the different tools that the teachers, you know, different teachers have just given me different tools to use and try. You know, like I've tried the mala beads. I have one meditation teacher that she's pretty high strung and she has a lot of energy. So she needs those mala beads. And I've tried it, but I actually found the mala beads to be a little distracting. But I wouldn't know unless I try it. So I'm truly grateful that they're, you know, that teachers are giving us different tools out there.
Yeah. And that's what those mala beads are really for, is to, if you're active. The other thing that's interesting, which I didn't really bring up or talk about, is if you have a hard time focusing, mudras, you know, can be very powerful in the meditation to help you focus and control without that movement of the bead, you know, sliding the bead over the fingers. It's just like coming into the seated asana, you know, whether it's lotus or sukhasana, and trying to maintain that seat. If you come in and you come into a mudra, all of a sudden you have to be more hyper aware and committed to keep the hands like that too.
The other thing I was thinking about, so I've also started dabbling in yoga nidra.
Yoga nidra, yes.
But is that more of a meditation, or like it's definitely, or is it more of like, for me, it's almost like more of a state of mind. Like I'm where the teacher has taken me. Basically.
So, yes. So yoga nidra, yoga nidra was invented by one of the teachers from the Bihar School of Yoga. It is based upon an ancient tantra sleep meditation, where you try to tap into the state of the mind beyond the dream state. It was created in the 1960s. It's not that old, but it is considered more of a hypnosis. It's because when it was created, they were, if done in the tradition that it was created in, you focus on the right side of the body, then the left side of the body, and the right side of the body, and the left side of the body. And so you are actually trying to get the right and the left lobe to reunite, almost like EMDR. If you're familiar with EMDR work, which is a light-based therapy that they develop for people who have experienced trauma. And it's a light bar, and the light goes back and forth, and the eyes only follow it. The head doesn't, but their eyes follow it. And for some reason, it can also be done audio, I should say, too. You could do right, left ticks, and you can have earphones in. They don't know why, but like, you know, when trauma happens, the spider web that connects the two lobes of the brain, they split apart. It's like, you know, something in your head has exploded. That's why people feel that way. And EMDR gets those webs to grow back. So, and they don't know why. They have not figured out why this works. But Yoga Nidra is also based upon that. And then Yoga Nidra goes into the idea of fast images of archetypes that will bring up certain psychoanalysis feelings within the person experiencing Yoga Nidra. So Yoga Nidra is like yoga hypnosis.
Yeah. I mean, it's an awesome experience. It doesn't feel like meditation to me.
It's totally terrific, but even the Bihar school does not consider it meditation. They consider it a separate practice unto itself. The interesting thing about Yoga Nidra is being used right now with a lot of patients at Walter Reed and a lot of the big military hospitals for people who have suffered brain injuries and have suffered trauma. And but even those people who are doing it, they've really studied the archetypes that they're giving them within the Yoga Nidra. We're developing a Yoga Nidra class right now that we're looking to add when we reopen up. That would be like a weekly Yoga Nidra.
That's awesome. I mean, I love it. Like, it's just, it was changing. It changed my life, I think.
Yeah.
So I love it.
It's not considered meditation.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, which is like I said, and you can get the Bihar School's book on Yoga Nidra. It's not a very thick book. It's a very interesting read because he does go into the functions of the neurological system and brain patterns and why they've created what they've created to try to tap into those movements of the nervous system and the brain pattern.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm definitely going to look into that.
Bihar School, you can get it on Amazon, probably even get it, and it's called Yoga Nidra, I think, and like you can even get a used copy. It's like you don't even have to like get somebody that's used copy of it, because it's like there's a lot of them out there, you know. But it's interesting read. All right, everybody. Well, thank you guys so much for showing up and being here. Thank you. And let's chant Om, and we'll close the program today. So
thank you, Austin.
Thank you. So just close your eyes, inhale deeply. Everybody have a beautiful day and the rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next week.